Well, thank you, Brand Innovators and Hertz. Thank you for having us. I'm Sean Magee, and the CEO and founder of AnchorTrading. I'm not a professional moderator, just so you know, contrary to what this sounds like.
It's good because I'm not a professional speaker either, so it's going to work out well for us.
This is going to be fantastic. This might be, we might have to take this one on the road, Dan.
We'll try.
What I will say, though, before we jump into the behind the brand with Hertz, I lived on a Spoons-class destroyer during Desert Storm for 2 years. So, Jennifer, if you want any research on the waterless toilet, I'm your man. I know all too much about the waterless toilet. And when I came back to the U.S., I was very happy to see Kohler.
With water or waterless?
Oh, it was with water.
Okay.
And I don't think I'll ever go waterless.
But I think later you should ask her if it's a bubbler or a water fountain. Just
whoa, that's a
fun fact quiz
that might
for
be a
her
little
later.
bit above my pay grade.
It's a bubbler, right?
So Dan, why don't we start with this? A little background on kind of your role at Hertz. You know what you do and kind of what your history is with regarding branding and loyalty and such.
Sure. So I've been with Hertz for about a little over 4 years. Started pre-pandemic, which was obviously crazy. Led up their digital design and user experience for them. But I kept in my back pocket that I was in charge of. I ran loyalty and had loyalty experience for 20 years. Didn't bring it forward. And probably I would say about 10 months ago, I was asked to lead up global loyalty for Hertz. So that's my Hertz journey. But prior to that, I led day of travel at United Airlines. So a lot of history with inside loyalty. And then prior to that was really leading up and being part of, we'll say the green guys. We won't actually say their name, but their loyalty program, Marriott, Continental Airlines, United Airlines leading their programs as well. So there's a ton of loyalty background in my space. Started in the UX and design and then have trickled back into this space of how do we surprise and delight our customers on a daily basis.
That's great to hear. So you obviously have a deep, broad and wide and deep experience in loyalty. You know, we talked about this last night. Dan and I, by the way, we did spend Valentine's Day. Not the whole night, just for
part
coffee.
of it.
It was
at a Starbucks, so it was a really good place to go.
I did have a 12. I did Tuesday night, so I didn't leave. I have 2 daughters and a son who. Anyways, that's another story. But we did share a coffee, and what we did talk about was, brand loyalty. We think about points and things like that. The consumer does in terms of like setting up. I'll get more points through credit cards or rental cars, whatever it may be. But how does the brand keep a customer loyal, if you will, right? How do you retain that customer? And is it through, if we talked about the ice cream and the sprinkles example you really gave, which I thought was a really interesting concept.
Yeah, I think from a brand perspective, I think you have to start with the product. We talk about loyalty and we talk about loyalty programs. We'll probably get into more of that a little bit later, but I said this to Sean last night. It's like, if you think about a loyalty program or loyalty in general, like think about ice cream. Pick a terrible ice cream. I'm going to pick on Kemp's because I'm not a Kemp's fan, but you take Kemp's ice cream and you put sprinkles on it. It's probably good one time. Take like a Breyers, a Ben & Jerry's, and you start to put sprinkles on it. It kind of changes that and becomes epic. And I think you have to start with that base product to get your customers to stick loyal. I think I'll talk a little bit about we'll talk about McDonald's for a minute. I know it's not Hertz, but I'll give you some context if you think about how customers became loyal to McDonald's and their loyalty program that they now have today. They started in 2021. But if you roll back to call it 1989, can anybody tell me what did McDonald's do in 1989 that changed the game for McDonald's? Anyone? No participation? Oh, Arthur. Monopoly. So Monopoly is one thing that they entered into their system of excitement for their customers to drive that loyalty. That was their first loyalty program before they relaunched it in 2021. And so you think about, they built a really good product. They also built a promise for customers, and they kept the promise. And so I think you've got a product and a promise. And I think when we talk at Hertz, and I talk to everybody at Hertz, we need to make a promise and keep a promise. That is the key to a loyal customer. If you go back and dig into brands and you think about why did they fail or why did they go wrong, I bet you can link just about every one of them to like, they broke that promise somewhere for their customers consistently and they didn't keep it. And so I think our goal at Hertz is we continually try to continue to keep that promise for our customers.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that it spans across all different brands, right? So it depends on what the brand may be or the service may be. It doesn't necessarily have to be a consumer product. It could be in your business, a rental car, my business, in the service business. It has to be. You have to have that core. The product has to be good, right? You have to. Once you break that commitment, I think it starts to set a pace for the organization culturally to continue to breaking until it gets fixed again. So it's a very good point. I'm not a big McDonald's fan anymore.
Neither am I.
Yeah, that's so. One of the things we talked about was so loyalty from the customer, but what really makes a great loyalty program? Is it we talk about service and the quality in your business in the it's like, how do you make that ease of use? And you're competing with different things and different elements out there, not necessarily just your competitors, but different lifestyles or different changes in travel and business and things like that, from the Lyfts and the Ubers of the world, and also the remote access of like how things have changed. Like, so what are you doing to retain or build that customer base and loyalty?
I think if we go back to when Hertz started their loyalty program back in, I believe it was 1989. I hope I got the number right. If anybody's fact checking me, it's probably upstairs on the wall. But they didn't have a loyalty program. They started a loyalty program with a great base product. Again, we talk about this base product of how good it is. And they introduced something that no one had done in the industry, was skip the line. We've been the industry leader in skip the line, skip the counter, move quickly. And at that point, it was a game-changing thing for the industry. You're able to go from the airplane to your car in a matter of minutes. And the thing is they met a need for the customer on top of their great product. And I think that's what a loyalty program needs, is how do you start to build needs and wants of customers? Because it's not necessarily about the points. You're going to have people that are going to want to gamify and do the points and get the free days or the $10 off, but it's the everything else that makes that customer special behind the scenes that they take advantage of, and they just become brand loyal. If you think about today, like the Hertz program, it was designed, it's probably 10 years old now today, and we're looking at how do we enhance some of that and do some things different to it. COVID changed our mindset a little bit on how we look at loyalty at Hertz, because we went from a business traveler-centric program to, we've got real loyal customers who are leisure, who travel once a year, and they don't get to feel special. And so now the whole point is, now we're going through this migration of how do we look at making those customers feel special, those people who travel once a year just as special as the people who travel 16 times a year with us. So it's about adding benefits that feel special to customers and giving them choice. Mm-hmm. You know, you think of Delta, when you get up into their ranks of different things that they do, they give you certificates for upgrades, and you can choose, do I want regional, do I want international, and you can pick the things you want, and that's what keeps people sticky. They have a choice to belong, but they also have a choice to pick whatever they want. And it feels like it's their opportunity to be part of a program that knows who they are. And so I think it's a product, it's know who they are, and it's building those experiences for your customers, because it's not just about points.
Agreed. It's I think most people in this room, when you think of Hertz, Hertz to me has been like Trex is to the composite decking world, right? Hertz is that to the rental car base. Hertz is basically the Kleenex of the tissue space.
I'm glad we don't rot, or we're rainproof, so that's good.
Yeah.
Don't got to stain us every year.
No, but it's that brand. So as a marketer and a head of loyalty and e-com, I mean that's a very, very, that's a big task to maintain that image, right? That brand awareness with the new and up and coming customer, right? So how do you get the younger who are changing their lifestyles? How do you kind of grab them early on, the millennials that are not necessarily traveling as much as maybe you and I have in our careers?
So I think we speak differently to them. Mm-hmm. I think the things that, and I can talk about this because it's in the wild, the things that we've changed when I took the role from a loyalty perspective is, how are we talking to our customers and what does that look like? I think traditionally we have this in our own, in just in the corporate world, we have this stigma that we have to talk to our customers a certain way, and we have to, there's all these branded messages. I'm not pointing at Stephanie at all, so don't think I'm pointing at her. Branded messages, that's the way we think we need to communicate with our customers, and that's what they want. But that's not what everybody's truly looking for. And so we did something a little bit, we'll call it crazy. It didn't go over well. People didn't want to do it, but we changed how we speak to our customers. We built a hero for our loyalty program, which happens to be me. So my name's on everything, which means I get certified letters from our customers complaining, but that's a whole nother story. But we went along the lines of saying, how do we build a communication stream with them that felt personal? So if you sign up for our program and you get the welcome journey, you're going to get 7 emails from me that are going to be from me and my voice and my tone that give you personal information about my life. And I tell you about why to be part of this program to connect with the customers. And the beauty is that we ran the test for we'll call it 6 months. And we saw an incremental of, we'll call it 30,000+ reservations. Just in a welcome series that had no links in it, no CTAs to go book, nothing to call, just to say hello. We took them out of everything else, which you think from a new customer and acquisition perspective, you don't want to do that. But we're seeing returns on that. And so that you have to think differently about the customer base that you're working with and kind of step away from what you think the norm is and try something completely radical on the other side.
Good perspective. How would expanding on that, how do you measure the success or failure of such a campaign or an approach, if you will? Like, how do you, using loyalty or just branding in general, like, how does the industry or the brand specifically, how do you measure the success or result or failure, if you will, of the program?
So we look at as enrollments and retention rate of how are we keeping those customers and how long do those customers stay, and can we continue to grow that retention? I think everybody's metric will be, in a loyalty perspective, is retention. How do I capture that new customer today? And then how do they stay year 2, year 3, year 4, and what do they look like, and can I keep them active? And I think we'll see some of the fruits of our labor next year from the things we've done this year to see, did those things work? And I think it's about that. That's the key measurement for me, is that retaining that customer, and are we speaking to them correctly?
Yeah, that's a kind of segue. It's like, how do you retain the new customer and keeping them? I think one of the things that comes into service, right? Service, that quality, what we talked about earlier in the conversation is, the product is what really keeps them coming, right? As long as you stay to the brand and if it's working, having a truly quality service, seamless, for any customer, that whether it's business or families renting cars or whatever it may be, or vans, the ease of use is such a huge thing in this business, because when you're coming off the airport and you're going to rent a car, it's like, can I go this way, just get in a car, or what's the extra step? And how, if there is an extra step, that ease of use, how easy is it? And that's a big challenge, not just I'm sure for Hertz, but for the industry in itself.
It's a big challenge. If you've been in an airport, in some airports, there's 2 to 3 hour lines, right?
Yeah.
Park that you got to stand in and figure out. And I think today our product team is working on new innovations to kind of speed that process up for customers and get back to that promise we made in 1989, where you can skip the counter and be part of this, and everybody can move through quickly. Right. It's the product, though. It goes right back down to the product and the smiles and the people on location and servicing our customers to make it work.
Right. Using kind of technology and innovation, right? So how do you make the app more, innovative, easier? The car be ready. I mean, wouldn't it be great if the car could be right outside the gate, right?
Well, fun fact, we do have a product now that is running, so you can give it a test out. If you're in San Jose, there is a product that is running right now that allows you to do the exact same thing.
Where the car comes right up to the gate.
Not to the gate yet.
Well, I mean,
Arthur's going to drive cars to the gate. Like, Arthur would love that gig. Arthur would love that gig because Arthur loves being in cars for a long time.
I'm in the service business, right? So I have a professional service. We're media buying and investment. So ease of use is a big thing and I found it's not just for our business, but it really is for any brand out there. Ease of use, right? Is it easy to use my product? Is it easy to the easier it's able to be used, you're ahead of your competition. I think in any business, right? So that's we talk about innovation. How are you driving with with most businesses with data? I mean, Hertz has been around for decades, and you have probably when the rental car business started, I mean, it was maybe 2 or 3 out there, right? I mean, and now we have about 6, 7 players.
There's more than 6 or 7, but 6 or 7 key ones in
key
our
ones
market.
that you're going up against. How are you using e-com and data and first-party data and third-party data to drive not just new customers, but drive that ease of use back to your existing customers?
So we use a lot of different third-party tools to research, like how is our competition doing against us, .com conversion rate, e-commerce performance, to see like where do we sit. We leverage heavily on SEO, organic strategy. What does that look like? How do we drive people there? How do we get new customers in? And then what is our competition doing? We put a heavy lift into driving location data for us to see where our customers, where are they at? How can we reach them? And then how we get them to convert with inside of our systems. Again, like like Kohler, we have a lot of our own data. It's all over the place, to be completely honest. We're a 100-year-old company. You're trying to work with some systems that are still 100 years old. Like, I'm sure there's some out there, something called Frost. I don't know what that means, but there's a system out there we have to deal with. And so you have to be very creatively on that and have good partnerships with the Googles of the world to help you sort through some of those things, to help you partner and drive what the next thing is. But we sit closely on our organic side, and then we sit really closely with the paid team, and how do we structure all that and make sure that what we're doing is enhancing and benefiting what they're doing to then drive more of those acquisition plays back to our .com.
So you kind of coming off that, what have you seen the development of your customer, or the evolution of the customer? With the older there's a new generation coming. How are they coming to you in terms of consuming media, in terms of how they're being made aware? Is it, going across the big 3, ABC, CBS, NBC anymore, or is it more on the digital side where that's where you're finding your new customers, all from the digital platforms?
I think of a lot of it's from our digital platform and from our streaming services. All those customers that's in those homes and stream Netflix, Hulu, all the different things, and those channels are relevantly always on. If you think about the younger consumer, like, they watch 30 seconds of videos, they're scrolling through stuff so fast they never sit and watch something, and so that's where that space is. And we've seen, since I've started, and Alex can correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that I started, our mobile traffic was about 30%. We're now 50-50, sometimes 60-40, depending on the day, of mobile traffic to our .coms, which is just a big insight to know that our demographic and the consumer is changing. And like I said, COVID did a big swing for us. We went from a business to a leisure, and now you're trying to, how do you balance that?
Yeah, I would have to believe, given the customer base you're going after, they're not around televisions as much, if you will. Mobile would have to be a driving force behind the brand awareness. Basically, we have, we talked about new and existing, retaining customers, and the brand. Where do you see the brand going in the next 5-10 years in terms of, and the industry as a whole too? I mean, from innovation, not just in terms of getting the brand out, but what kind of new technology or offerings do you think the rental space could be offering? I mean, no one ever saw an Uber or a Lyft coming out of it. No one saw that coming, right? You heard of it, and then wow, it was like, wow, this is a very innovative way of, going to and from our meetings. So how does the industry, kind of not necessarily compete, but maybe get into that space, if you will?
I think I'll answer the question about where is Hertz going to be. I think Hertz will continue to be the leader. If you look at our history of 100 years, we're constantly pushing the needle against everybody else, and we're trying to make them better. I think from an industry perspective, I think if you think touchless, you think frictionless, you think ease of doing business, and you start to think all of this mobile ordering and DoorDash, like, the consumer mindset is changing in a way that counters and interacting with humans is not as important as it once was. And so how do you start to bring back that into the digital ecosystem and start to allow mobile enablement for all of these things so the customer feels like now they have that utter control within their hands? I think if you think that we'll have to model a lot of things that the airlines do. If you look at the airlines and they've taken what was just a paper thing, a boarding pass, put it on your phone, and then they even took it even a step further. And now they're putting the upgrade list is now on your phone. You can see that, and you can check and purchase your seats on your phone. I think you're going to start to see a lot of the enhancements from the technology with telematics in cars and how you can track cars and where they're at and where they are in the fleet and location. You'll be able to start to offer up some of those great benefits to customers that the airlines do today, and customers are already expecting that pattern because it's a pattern that exists, and they think, well, Delta can do it. Why can't Hertz do it? If Marriott can give me a digital key, why can't Hertz do it? And I think you start to look into how do you embrace some of those patterns outside of your industry so that you can bring them in, and now you're surprising and delighting that customer, and it's just that there's frictionless experience happens from the time they get on the plane to the time they get off it to the time they get in their hotel and back, and you were just part of that fluid motion. And I think that's it's going to move in that direction. It already has started moving in that direction, but I think over the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see a major movement in that run.
You bring up DoorDash. So I mentioned earlier I have 2 daughters, and during COVID, I just couldn't. I was blown away. At the time they were in high school, I was blown away. They would order Chick-fil-A and pay $9, $10 for the meal, but $25 to have it delivered. It would drive me up a wall. It still does. They still do it. But it's a generational thing, maybe. Maybe that's what it is. But kind of, to that point, is the customer in the rental car space, are they price driven? Or is it always price driven? Or are they willing to pay for that extra cost or fee if you were able to get your car delivered right to your house to take you to, if you're renting a car for, let's say, a family trip? Are they willing to pay the extra fees to have the car at the right at when you come outside the airport?
Well, I'm pretty sure there's someone that's willing to pay for that.
Yeah, I know.
For sure.
I know I am.
But I think when you talk about cost sensitive and price sensitivity, I think you could say most people are.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll turn that on its head and say, if you're loyal to a brand, the price doesn't matter. Would take Apple for existence. We'll just use Apple because they're majority of people are probably an iPhone, Android, maybe some. People don't care about the cost of that Apple product.
Right.
They just don't. If they did, they'd be surfing an Android because Apple products never go on sale. And so you think about our Hertz customer, they think sometimes in that same model. There's people in there that isn't as sensitive as some people who's coming from an OTA or an outside third party shopping and price shopping. So I think you have all of those, but your loyal customers, price doesn't matter because the service is so great.
Yeah, I guess at least I speak from a business perspective. We can't take chances, right? So when you have a company like Hertz who's always there, the brand is proven time and time again to be reliable. Cars are clean, awesome, they're on time. Yeah, we can't take a chance. So the premium, even there is a premium, but you're competing with the Orbits and Expedias that are just price driven for some of these customers. So it's an interesting approach to see, of all the customers, how many are actually price driven versus just staying with it. And because you have companies, especially nowadays, where CFOs and procurement folks are looking at larger programs for their fleet rental cars, and they're basically saying, hey, this is offering from a cheap, a cost basis, but yet the people that are using it within a company are saying, I don't want to move. There's a totally different experience. How do you compete with that?
That's a tough one.
Yeah,
we send a sales team in there to fix that problem for us, and they can wrangle that one and bring them back.
That's when you blame sales.
Yep.
Yeah,
bring sales.
I'm fair with that. All right, we kept it kind of covered a lot. I think we would open up to.
Do you want to hear the dog story quick? Because
I'm sorry. That just came out, but I do want to hear the dog story as an owner of a King Charles. I would like to hear this.
All right. Sorry, Arthur. So was it August? Roughly August. August, I was blessed to get a new puppy or a new dog. Ironically, the dog was 10 months old. Her name is Cooper. She was in Elk Mound, Wisconsin. So people from the Wisconsin area probably know where that is. I had this crazy idea of, can I get someone to drive with me 24 hours and do a cannonball run from Wisconsin back to Florida in less than 24 hours? Out of all the people in the office, I convinced Arthur. Didn't really take much convincing because the man is up for a challenge. So we flew into Minneapolis, drove to Elk Mound, Wisconsin, picked up Cooper, and cannonballed around her back here in Estero in less than 24 hours. I will guarantee you speed limits were broken. We know exactly how fast the Dodge Durango goes. 120 if anybody's curious. But the fun thing about it is the Hertz team here supported us with it. Some of our agencies supported us on it. And the car was decked out in Canon Bull Run swag magnets on the side that had a poster of Arthur and I, which one of them fell off the car somewhere in Wisconsin. So someone now has a Canon Bull Run poster with me and Arthur on it. But that's the type of loyalty that we bring within here. And so you think about loyalty, dogs are loyal. They're loyal to whoever you are. And that's what you try to build with your customers, that unforgiving loyalty, right? They just doesn't matter. Like, how do you keep them in?
That's pretty cool. That's wow, good for you, Arthur. I was like, he seems scarred.
I joke because I think I've spent more time in the car with Arthur than my wife.
Yeah, well, we're probably hear more of that at dinner. But I did want to just touch on one last thing. As a veteran-owned business, I've seen some things that Hertz has done within the military community, supporting that. How do you, go into a community that's very, kind of not. It's a unique community. I'm using because you speak about loyalty, right? That's a very loyal community. And we do, as a veteran-owned business, we do a lot of charitable support, a lot of what Homes for Heroes and things like that. And I've noticed things that Hertz has done from a branding, using and partnering with the veteran community and the military. How have you used that in terms? Do you see a greater propensity, a higher level of loyalty coming from that community?
Yep, because I think we go back and we look at what makes it special for them, and how do we continue to look at them as a human and not just as another customer. So how do you humanize that relationship? And we got great teams that do the research and figure that out for us, with our partnerships team and our sales team, to bring those people in and have that handshake. And we have, in the veteran side, we have a lot of veterans that work here, and they're very passionate about delivering those experiences for those customers. And it's always brought forefront. Like, we're always, if the idea comes up, we're going to go do something for it, because we know the importance of it to drive that group of individuals.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you for your service.
My honor. So I guess we'll open it up to the audience on any questions.
Hi, guys. Thank you for this opportunity. I have a question surrounding Apple and its products. We've seen Dan create so many great experiences with digital, and now with the Apple Vision Pro coming out, how do we have that interaction with the customer? And I know that's something that's so new. Are we planning on diving into that as a brand?
If Wayne lets me buy one. I think the concept is interesting. I think when you think about the Vision Pro, I think where you have to think differently about it is, how is that customer actually going to use it, and what's that UI inside of that space, and what is the practical use case for us? If you think about the Vision Pro, I can surf websites, I can watch TV, I can set landscapes in my house, I can do all kinds of interesting things with it. But it's like, what would we do with it that would benefit the customer, and then what's the penetration of that product? That product itself is, I think, $3,500. Like, it's not cheap. But you can't drive with a car. You can't have it on when you're in a car. I just saw a video of someone getting pulled over with it and that drove with it in a car. So it just depends on what we think the practical use is going to be. I don't think anything's off the table as we think forward thinking. We've thought about the meta and what that looks like. Ryan's dug into a little bit of that, and how do you leverage that space as well?
You both mentioned briefly gamification. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, of like where you see that going, especially with younger generations? Like, do you see that being something that becomes more and more popular? You probably talked about the most iconic example of that with McDonald's, but where do you see the future of that?
So I'll just say we've looked at it from our side. It's how do you, when you think about a customer who rents 2 times a year, 3 times a year, like how do you gamify that to get them into the program to then get advantage of that, and what are the benefits that are around that? I think there's some companies that are easier to do that, like the Chipotles of the world, where you're indexing at a low price point, and we're at such a high price point. It's like, how do you gamify that price point until you change like how you deal with points and how points are managed, and what does that look like, and do you have a rewards program where people can go purchase other things? I think that's your draw, but you have to solve like what would you do with it after that, because I think gamification is good. Sometimes it's sticky, and then sometimes it's not sticky. Like, oh, that was fun, and then I'm over. I think about Garmin and their gamification inside their app. You just do it and it's there, but it doesn't give you anything. Like, you have to figure out what the return is on it, because it's a buzzword. Everybody loves to talk about it.
Well, we talked about last night with the monopoly situation, right? And no one ever was able to get the
no one wasn't able to actually win it because somebody was taking Park Place out of it.
Right. So
there's a whole documentary out. You can watch it. It's fabulous.
I didn't know
it's
this.
Fascinating.
I was blown away by that. I was like, really? And because I was back in the day, I was a McDonald's Monopoly guy. But the fact that, I was thinking, how would you apply some sort of strategy like that into a Hertz? But to your point, the price point, your point of entry and frequency, right? It's a little different.
You would probably see it more on Dollar or Thrifty.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Anderson David. I'm from Team Snap. An excellent segue into Dollar and Thrifty, because as you sit across loyalty, we talked a little bit or a lot about Hertz, but what is your vision for loyalty when you think about those other sub-brands, to call it, in terms of approaching that and who you're talking to, and ultimately how you're presenting that differentiation? Because as we know in hospitality, Marriott's got, 30 brands, and Hilton's got 20 some odd brands. You fortunately only have 3, but you still have to do a great job of speaking to those audiences and communicating what it means to be loyal.
So I think, and just to be honest, we're rethinking what Dollar and Thrifty look like today. Today, Thrifty is a 15% off discount off your rental, and Dollar is a very similar points-driven program with no tiers inside of it. So there is programs on it today. But we're rethinking, like, what does that look like now, and how do those brands tie together from a Hertz Dollar Thrifty perspective? What are the benefits that live differently on Dollar? To tell you the truth, I don't know the answer yet. I think we're in the midst of those researches of like, how is this going to be different to the Marriott idea? Like, is it a family of brands? Is it a cohort? Like, how does that come together? And is that what the industry needs? I think there's lots of research on it. I'll tell you that we're working on it. And stay tuned.
Hi. So, Sean, you asked Dan about millennials and what do you do differently, and you talked about how you changed the way you approached your welcome emails. So does that now go to everybody, or do you have different ways of approaching new acquisitions depending on what cohort is being acquired?
So today I'll say we're going to everybody. So we've just launched the U.S. to 100% of traffic of new enrollees, and then we'll be looking at going to EMEA and then into APAC, and then the rest of the world. And then we'll start to look at like, how do those perform, and then do we start to pull certain cohorts out and start to do some different things in it? Is it a 7? Is it a 5? Is it a 3 email sequence? Or is it something completely different? Maybe Germany doesn't respond well to that, and we got to go back to a traditional welcome style Germany, which we do have today. But today it's a global run at it to see like, do those countries and those humans over there, kind of, can they gravitate towards, and does it feel better for them and different, and is it just as successful over there that it is here?
Hi, Dan. I'm Santi from the Venture Studio of General Mills, and I wanted to ask you a question about the welcome email too. Who did you have to convince internally to do it and put your name on
it? I might have just did it. Ask for forgiveness, kind of thing. No, we ran it up to Wayne. Wayne got to see it before it actually got deployed, but it was I think Wayne entrusts us to do what we do best. And so he didn't stand in the way from that. And it was a test for us. It's like, this is just different. Let's see if it works. And so I just had to convince Wayne. I mean, the rest of my team was on board. We just recently had to convince Europe. They were not on board, but they're now convinced. And so we're gonna run that gamut. So
as a long time Hertz customer, when do I start getting your emails? It seems like I'm missing out.
You want me to send them to you? Sophie's over here. You can talk to Sophie, give her your number, and we'll fire you the welcome series.
So given that sort of the dynamic you guys operate in, you can have the most amazing program, the most amazing space, but if you have a negative touch point with somebody at the return center or something else, that tarnishes everything. So given your role, what is your influence on training and service expectations at all those touch points, at all those locations?
So we are pretty well connected with the customer service center. So our call center, our people there, they actually reach out directly to me. Those agents will reach out to me or Sophie or some other folks on my team to help them through situations. And then we define situations for them. If this happens, do this, and this is how you treat that. So we give a good influence with it. We have a great partnership with Laura Smith, she leads up all of our sales and marketing from a customer service perspective. So we get the influence. However, I'd still get certified letters from customers complaining, wanting their status back of 40 years. So it's a balance. But we learn new things every day of like, how does the program work in the past? What were promises made to customers that were made by different people in different roles at different times? And that is wild to me. And so how do we manage that and try to bring that together so that we can let those agents empower them to do something and service that customer? I think that's the biggest thing that we're working on, is being able to figure out a way from a loyalty perspective, how do I empower that agent to actually take care of the problem for them versus just copying some line of script and sending it out and saying, hey, sorry, you can't do this,
Hi, Chelsea Castoria, brand marketing at Hertz. Thank you so much, Dan. This has been really great. So my question is kind of on your strategy of like the audience. So when you have someone that is like a loyal Hertz customer and like rents all the time, would you go after a person like that more aggressively via email versus like someone who maybe rents like a couple of times? Or is it like the opposite? Or is it kind of the same journey that you're testing into for both?
I think it'll depend on where you're converting from. Like if you're just a natural booker and you're coming into the flow, I wouldn't talk to you as much as if you were, I always saw your action was through an email. So I know your trigger or your touch point is the email versus you just love us as a brand. You're coming in direct all the time. So did you come email? Did you come direct? Did you come refer? Like, where are you coming from? And then that would trigger a response of how we communicate to you.
That was a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take you off the hot seat now.
I'm good. Someone's going to sit here and it's going to be hot. Like, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You can switch the seats out.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you, Dan. Thank you for doing this. Thank you, Brand Innovators. Thank you, Hertz, for hosting. This has been a great event. I've learned an awful lot about branding. So I'm looking forward to hearing more later. All right. So I think we're wrapped up, right? 28 seconds.
28 seconds.
28
we used it all.
seconds.